I welcome you all this evening to another Berean Live session. Scripture tells us of the Berean Christians that they had the culture of always going back to check the scriptures for the sole reason of authenticating the message that they have heard. That is, we live in a generation where anybody can get up at any point in time and say anything. And our lives are too precious. We're only going to live once. And our period of life on earth is so short, we can't just build it on anything anybody is saying. It has to be validated and authenticated by scriptures. So we have gone back, we've checked the scriptures, and we've come so that we can all reason together. So it's a two-way, three-way discussion. The panelists and I, we're having a flow of discussion, and you with us via the channels, we're having another discussion. So please make use of the comment box on Facebook, on Twitter, and YouTube, and possibly our website, and let's have a robust discussion. So I welcome you once again to Berean Bible Alive. Our prayer and our hope is that by the time we are done, you will be able to better apply the lessons and the principles and the life that has been shared with us since Sunday and today. Joining us today, again, is Pastor Victor Alaofin, PhD. You're welcome, sir. Pastor Victor. Your mic. Did I hear Pastor Victor? I want to make sure I'm hearing you.
Okay, I said thank you very much.
Oh, okay then. Thank you so much. And also with us again, for the second time, is Minister Steve Daniels. Thank you so much, Minister Steve Daniels, for making time to be on this discussion one more time.
Thank you very much, sir, for having me.
That's a senatorial way of greeting. And also we have a dearly beloved brother and co-partner in the ministry. Known him for a long, long time. Elder Funsho Shobande, you're welcome, sir.
Good evening, sir.
Excellent. So, Steve, let me start with you. We ended last week by saying all children are humans. Therefore, train them the same way till the point where they need to, their distinctive needs to be highlighted. Now we have had a follow-up to that about the very distinctive nature of the man. Before you address my own concern, which is, what's your take on that? What was your aha moment? And then my own question is, what's your take home about the distinctive of raising the men? Just in case that's not your aha moment.
Funny enough, it's almost it. The question you ask is almost the aha moment. The distinctive, okay, the aha movement was when he said to me, when he said to us, agenda is God's agenda. You know, all along, we've not really, for me, and maybe for others, we've not really looked at the gender issue that is creating some unnecessary argument here and there, particularly in the West, where we now have people who no longer see themselves, even though they have the male genital organ, they no longer see themselves as male, but they see themselves as something else. Likewise, women. But again, when he said gender is God's agenda, that actually took me back to the same Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 and 7, where he said, male and female, he created them. That is, having created us in his own image, who God himself, we've come to understand that God is both male and female. He further went further he went further to, the Bible went further to tell us that male and female, he created them. So for man to now try to, again, when you look at how these men, what was missing in their life, it gives a detailed understanding of the fact that during their being brought up, something was missing. Somebody somewhere that was supposed to institute something into them, that was missing. And the devil lashes on that, and men begin to say, oh, I am this, I am that. I would rather be an X instead of taking male or female. So that is it. Then coming to the distinguishing factor, which was a flow of what we had last week. Again, the whole thing boils down to almost the same. Because these features, the uniqueness of man, I've seen it from the teacher's explanation. It made us to understand that there are three distinct unique factors. And he talked about strength. When you look at strength, vis-a-vis where we're coming from last week, where we look at the lion and the lamb, strength represents the lion. Then when you move to the other one, he now talks about the essence of man having this strength is so that he can do battle. If you back up to the book of Exodus chapter 15, I think, he talked about the Lord being, how did he even put it now? God is a man of war. He's a man of war. So God being a man of war, this future with which God created us, where he told us in his image and likeness, that is in his functionality and his character, which he passed on to us, is still the same that is playing out now, where we see these three distinct factors, where we talk about this ability to do battle, and we also have the third one, which talked about being an hero. Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
we are with you.
Can
we
you
are
hear
with
me?
you. Yes, we can.
Sorry, it's raining. It's raining heavily. I think that is what my screen just went. Okay, about hero. What is this hero thing? Every man want to growing up. We have always looked forward to becoming this, becoming that, or doing this and that. Again, as I studied the Bible, I saw in the book of the same Genesis chapter 1. By the time I got to verse 28 of it, God commanded man to be fruitful and multiply. So I now look at this fruitfulness. What is this fruitfulness? It's the ability of a man to do battle. It's when you get to the multiplication stage, you have become that hero. So the whole thing is just interwoven. I would like to stop there for now.
Okay, thank you so much. After we had commenced, Elder Bola Shobande joined us. You're welcome. I'll be coming to you in a little while, so you may need to unmute your mic. Elder Funsho Shobande, you want to tell us your aha moment and maybe take it from where Steve stopped?
Thank you very much, Pastor. I think for me, the issue was, yes, he did say something that I consider very dear to my heart, which is that God's creations are gender specific. I mean, God specifically created man and woman. And I was very glad when at the UN, the late Robert Mugabe took that stance while he was addressing the United Nations. And he was talking about his country, but I think he was talking in a larger context of Africa, where he said, we are not gays, you know. And I think that in that context, we see that a man was created and the woman was created to be his helper and helpmate, and that all these other uh, machinations of people coming together are highly unscriptural. If you look at the book of Romans, chapter 1, 26 and 27, it says God gave them over to shameful lusts. And even the women exchanged unnatural relations with other people, and so on and so forth. We're aware of the story in Sodom and Gomorrah and that kind of thing. So for me, another point that hit home was when he says that we try to describe the father as the hero. And I think in the past, we've defined a father as a source from whom all things kind of flow. So if you're looking at the family, the fatherly figure, you know, it's a relationship first between a man and his God, a man and his family, and then a man and others. And I think the last point for me is really when you look at what is the measure of a man. You know, if you ask yourself that question, what is a measure of a man? He made reference to the fact that a man knows he's a man or can prove that he's a man. But when you sit down, you ask yourself the real question, what really is the measure of a man? I think for me, the measure of a man is really where that person stands, right? In moments of, not where he stands, in moments of comfort and convenience, but really where he stands when there is challenge, controversy, or adversity. And in under any of those scenarios, what would determine the man is his strength and character. I think I'd like to stop there for now.
Thank you so much. Elder Bola, Shobande, let's come to you. The last week discussion, you are quite emphatic about the need to bring to the fore for the African child a clear distinctive between the male and the female gender. So if you want to take it from there, as well as tell us your aha moment during the message, then we can make progress.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me here again this evening. What I found, my aha moment was when he said that, he says, men, I remember that he said, men, the essence of a man is strength. And I went back, for some reason, everything kind of aligned with what it was that we had said in the previous week. He had said, we had mentioned also that men basically are described by, a man is kind of valued by his strength. One of the things a man is valued by. And that men were made to be powerful. A man is a warrior. And all of it comprises the strength again. So what I kept thinking about is, how do you balance the strength with the ability to serve? You know, if the focus of a man is how strong you are, how masculine you look, how women on the other hand are kind of made to feel like, often when a female child does something, you're like, stop doing that, stop walking like a man, stop doing this like a man. So clearly there's a clear distinction in what the expectation is from a female angle and a male angle. And for me, that is a clear distinction because we're back to the same thing of strength. And I just think the way I see it basically is we need to kind of intermarry them. We need to emphasize less on the strength and more on the service, or basically say, use your strength to serve for a man, and then say to the woman, use your service, when you serve with strength. So we can kind of marry them without undermining the attitudes of each. That for me was the aha moment for me. It was more like, we need to balance it because everybody needs to know where they stand and how to best achieve what the Lord has said they will achieve, using the qualities that God has put in them.
Thank you, Pastor Victor. Let's hear from you, the aha moment, and then any other thing you want to share at this time.
Something that is very clear when we talk about these things. The very first thing he said about the fact that gender was deliberately created by God. And I think part of what we battle very much in this generation is we're seeing the hand of the devil and his doctrine trying to corrupt everything that God made and that he designed. In God, anything we're talking about in this area must always derive from the master, who is the chief designer of the human race and the human group that we're talking about. So the Bible said he created them male and female. This was even before women were created, which meant both genders were a deliberate creation from the beginning. And he went on to also establish the distinction. The reason why there's a need to have distinction between the two, because the two working in their silos, properly formed according to his plan, when they come together, they form one, which gives us that equation that we talk about during wedding ceremonies, that 1 + 1 is 1. The one that is formed by a man and a woman is the most complete and rounded form of one that you can have on earth. Is the best and biggest form of one that is possible, because everything is fused together, the strength, the emotion, everything into one. There is no other place where we can find balance like we can find it in the example of the Father. We have the Father is described in scriptures as the Lord of hosts. He's described as the powerful one. But when we have problems, who do we run to? We run to him. And some poet in Yoruba language says he races to go and save his children from danger. And he says he, not she. So what we're saying is that all the issues of trying to dissectorize the gender into a conflicting position, I think generally it doesn't come from God's perspective. There is no conflict if it's approached from God's perspective, because there is a purpose to everything that he made. He did not make anything. Scientists in every area that have and everything they have done haven't found things that God created that have no objective. Everything he made, there's a reason, and that reason is well defined and served by that thing that he created. So my take is that balance. Most of the discussions or arguments come when there is an imbalance. A man has strength. A man is a warrior. A man is a hero. So what purpose is he having that strength? Is he battling? Is he a hero? For selfish purposes? Is this to do anti-God things? No. He has all those strengths to use to defend and protect the other side. Now, we look at it and following the kind of philosophy that is all over the place now. I have seen live examples of some environments where in reacting to some of the things that we're discussing, society has created men that are emasculated, and they have created women that are more masculine than men. The new contraption has not produced better results. We can all recall the scripture in Ecclesiastes that says, whatever God does cannot be improved on. That's why I always say that there is no version 1.2 human being or version 1.5 baby. If it is man, there will be 2000 model. Then there will be 2001 model that will be better. But whichever year God created us, that model is what we have been running since then, and you can't make it better. So my summary, I think he said it all when he started it with the fact that the genders were created by God and they were created for a purpose, and that all the qualities in the man was put there to serve. There is no father if there is no sacrifice. I look at most of the examples of countries that we have and all the issues that we have in many of them. If you look at most of the countries that have succeeded, go and I think it was Funshaw that shared one pointed us to one documentary that said the men that built America. There is always a father that creates development in most environments. There is a fatherly spirit that makes things happen. That kind of spirit, so that fatherly spirit reminds us that all those strengths, all those qualities that are defined as masculine, they are created for the purpose of the people and the family. They were not created so that a man can jump from a mountain and jump on a horse, fly a plane and shoot guns and say that he's a macho man. That's not the objective. The objective is for the group that is his constituency, was created to protect, to serve, and take care of. And everything that God puts in the female gender is also to bring to complete that union, bring it into completion. So I think I'll stop there because of time.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Victor. I will still stay with you on the next thing I would like us to discuss. He spoke about inabilities in the physical body of a man as a weakness and therefore not able to satisfy a partner. And he also likened that to inabilities in the psyche that also leads to inability of the man to be the real man that he needs to be within the family setting. But for the advantage of those who are not able to listen to the Sunday message, and if you are joining us, this is Berean Bible Alive, you can participate in this discussion by typing in the comment boxes what your thoughts and perspectives are. All we are looking for is the truth of God's word and nothing but the truth. And we are discussing a message from Sunday service called Restoring the Masculine Heart, delivered by Stephen Omojugbe. So he says, based on 1 Corinthians 16:13, the essence of a man is strength. He also says, based on Exodus 26:3, God is the God of war. So the strength of the man is to do battle, fight for the love of his wife, fight for the sanity of his family, and defend the vulnerable and stand for justice in the society. And he also says every man, based on Ephesians 1:22, where it says God has been made the head of all things, that a man also seeks to be a hero. Now, specifically talking about the man being a strength, he mentioned the fact that when a man in a marital situation has low libido or can't sustain an erection, he is of no use to the wife. And I do know that there are many women that have complained about this, either because the man is stressed or there could be some other underlying situation. So he says that's a lack of strength. Okay. So my question is, as a Christian, length physically in his body, what should he do? What should the wife do? The second leg would be, if he's having this psychologically, what should he do? What should the wife do? We will take the second leg later on, but let's quickly address it because he raised it. In a marital situation, the man is not able to intimately satisfy the wife. What should he do? What should the wife do? Pastor Victor, your mic is muted, sir.
From a couple of perspectives. I think the first thing is that in a marital relationship, the Bible says that the man's body does not belong to him, neither does the wife's body belong to the wife. So there is a responsibility in that aspect. that is placed on the man. The initial way I like to approach this is that a man that is conscious of that responsibility will definitely have an inclination to ensure that he fulfills the responsibility. Now, what I see that the man can do is, when you talk about a low libido situation possibly arising, for instance, from stress, I think somebody who knows that I have a responsibility to do XYZ or to deliver in this area, that responsibility will make the man to try everything in his power to avoid getting into that situation where it is physical. So what I'm saying is, a man works whatever kind of work, wears himself out at work, and comes home and is not able to deliver at home. There is some element of irresponsibility there. There's a bit of it that the man can control. That's where I'm going. Now we have the second aspect, where maybe as a result of some physical dysfunction, some illness or something, the man is not able to do anything at that point. Now, the one that is outside of the man's control, that's basically where I'm going. If it is within the man's control, the responsibility should make the man to be conscious of that and do what is necessary to ensure that he does not get out of shape. But where you have a situation where he's totally out of his control because of illness, because of some physical situation that he cannot manage, I think that is where I think very particularly understanding on the part of the couple now coming. Because you have, for instance, a man that is, let's take for example, a man is suffering excruciating back pain, which has nothing to do with the marital life, but that situation is known at home that this man has this problem. I think it should also, in my view, where you have the two working together, it should also there's a responsibility on the woman's side as well to understand the man's position, and vice versa. Also, you have a woman that has some whatever condition that also makes it difficult for the woman to perform or to be available in that sense. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that where it is within control, I expect that responsibility should demand that the man know that he has these responsibilities to discharge and act in that consciousness. Where it is totally out of the man's control and there's nothing he can do about it, and I think that at that point, understanding is expected on behalf of the woman. And if there's any form of help that is available that he can get, medical, spiritual, counseling, whatever, I think it is very, very responsible of the man to look for such help and get it. I'll stop here.
Okay, Minister Steve Daniel, the man should look for help and get it, but most men don't talk about it, can't talk about it because it has destroyed the very basis or foundation of what they consider masculinity. So adding to that, you need to unmute your mic. What should the man do? What should the woman do?
Taking it from where Dr. Lafin stopped, he said, since the woman and the man are one, the woman knows the challenge the man has, and vice versa. I think if both of them are sincere enough, you see, oftentimes we look at these things like we will not exploit all available avenue before we often jump to conclusion. I remember my own personal experience now. In 2007, I went to Port Harcourt. I stayed in my friend's house because they have a very big house, like this, you know, the way Indians' house are. They'll have all the family stay in their house. So I saw his dad and we were talking. And I said, oh, I need to go and get one of my blood pressure control drugs. My friend's dad is a medical doctor. He said, which one do you take? I told him. He now said, how long have you been taking it? After the man finished interrogating me, he now said, look, I will strongly advise that when you go back to Lagos, go back to your doctor. You've been on this drug for a while, you should change it. In fact, that was the time he made me to understand that that particular brand of high blood pressure control drug weakens a man's libido, his ability to perform. So I strongly advised against it that you are so young, you can't be pumping this into your system. So, like I said, except where they've done all, even the Bible says, having done all, stand still. Let them go from trying different medical solutions that will be available to them, to exercise, to spiritual. Just try everything. God will always make a way. There is this testimony, I remember very well, it was around 1987. This man had not been able to perform his original conjugal duty for over 15 years. He went to a crusade. Suddenly, he observed that something is rising in between his legs. And so in that line, people should try and go through all the available solutions. Where they don't know, they should ask. Because this thing actually do bring problems in homes. But people should find solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Elder Funsho, let's hear from you on this same subject matter. Your mic is muted.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So let me just take it from where the other speakers have stopped. The cause of this problem could either be medical or physiological or psychological, And I think where it is medical, I think the important and most important factor is to seek help. But again, all these erectile dysfunction and all those kind of things can be caused by stress or medical conditions, sometimes even by, performance anxiety, And I think where a man and a woman are both aware, then there are a few other therapeutic things they could explore. For example, how to manage the expectation and take the pressure of performance. Not every copulation experience has to be at 100%. And if that expectation is managed between the man and his wife, then it could start to be a point of recovery. Again, as a couple, they shouldn't be ashamed to visit maybe a sex therapist to see what can be done about building up of a libido. Also, I think the whole idea about the copulation, they may need to explore new ideas. I mean, they could focus on the stimulation of other erogenous zones. Some people get turned on when you stimulate maybe their ears or something. They need to discover one another and see how to build that libido. And then also to build some kind of anticipation to combat, loss of libido. For example, many times we've heard that whereas it takes a man a very short time to be prepared for lovemaking, for a woman, you might have to start laying up that agenda from the beginning of the day. So people should really, if you get bogged down with all the stress of work and this and that, there is very little time for all that. And this whole situation comes gradually over time. So the man comes home, he's knackered, there is a need, and he just does what the minimum he's able to do, and then he crashes off to sleep. Over time, that relationship is bound to degenerate. So these are just a few ideas that I think people can explore when they start to confront this problem. I'd like to stop there for now.
Okay. I would have asked Bola Shobande, but she had to quickly go take an emergency call. I'm sure when she joins us, if we can still take her point of view, we will. But this is where we are. So the man his masculinity is derived from his strength, or his masculinity gives him strength, from what we have been told, gives him courage as a man of war, and also makes him necessarily a man of sacrifice. God has strength, God has courage as a man of war, and is also highly sacrificial. He gave his only begotten son to redeem. So the man, the real man, is strong, is courageous, and is able to sacrifice. Where he fails in the area of his conjugal responsibilities, it could be a very big challenge for him. But he should understand that that is not the totality of his masculinity. And the wife should also understand that that is not where the world stops. They can get help and spiritual intervention. We believe God that all will be well in that area. But taking it from there, we will look at Luke chapter 9 and verse 35. Luke 9:35. If the back office can project that. And a voice came out of the cloud saying, "This is my beloved son, hear him." So this is God affirming a son, stirring up his masculinity from what we have heard, to ensure that this son is not emasculated in the area of functionality. That this man, this son of his, does not drop the ball. He is affirmed. The same way a man can fail in his conjugal responsibility, a man can fail in life because he did not have an earthly father affirm him. And he went ahead and told us that it would take a father constantly looking for scenarios to bring the child to a point where he can say, "You have done well, you are my son, I affirm you." That is what he said will bring the man out of the boy and make him functional. It happened for Jesus, it has to happen for your son. I want to quickly ask from personal experience, Pastor Victor, then Funshaw, and then Steve Daniel. Did your father affirm you? Can you recall the impact of him doing or not doing on you? How did you recover? How are you recovering? Are you doing your son? What advice would you have? As many of those questions as you can answer. Let's take it from a practical point of view, from your own personal experience, starting with Pastor Victor. Your mic, sir.
Okay. Yes, the place of affirmation is very, very strong and very obvious in the life of a person. In my own experience, I think I have said it before that my parents were separated, so I didn't live with my dad. I grew up with my mom. But there is no, in the kind of communities that we grew up with, that we grew up in Africa, there is no void of male figures. It's not, I don't think, especially in our days when we were growing up, there were always people around who played that role, so to say, who will talk to you when you get to a particular age and begin to play that role. It's very important in the sense that it's more like it's more like it gives you that sense that you are on the right track in this in the journey, in the gender journey, whether male or female. But we're speaking specifically to the male issue now. But what I do recall is about a lot of experience over the period where either we had an older cousin that was with us, or an uncle or somebody who constantly had that affirmation, that role of affirmation to play. So what I would say is that it gives a lot of strength, and you see it even from when the child is small. The child does something, you encourage the child to go along that path. It gives the child confidence. It helps to build a lot of confidence, for the child to do more in that direction. So I think it's clearly the affirmation works, in my opinion, in two ways. It works on the individual, and it also works on the society or the environment that the individual is. So you have a child that is publicly affirmed for being on the right track. It encourages the child and also positions the child within the community for strength and for and gives the child some push to go forward in that direction. I'd just like to quickly say something from the last point. If there's always been this talk of, if I do this, it will be seen as weak, as a sign of weakness. I tend to see that very differently. My understanding of strength is strength does not exist without weakness. There is nobody who is strong and doesn't have a weakness part of the strength. So what I'm trying to say is admitting a weakness is strength on its own. Inability to admit a weakness is an issue. That's exactly what turns that into a weakness. So if a man has a challenge, I think what is supposed to be weighing at that point is your devotion, love, and duty to your wife versus what people will say if you go to see a doctor, for example. I think that for me is the way I look at it. And I think it's being able to own up to, it's pretty much the same thing as being able to own up to a fault. It's the same type of strength of character that you require when you know that it's something that is important. I think I'll stop there.
Okay. Elder Funshop, your mic needs to be unmuted.
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor. Okay, I think taking off from where Pastor Victor stopped, there are many circumstances where the validation by a man may not be possible. Separation or divorce, death of a spouse, and some people are adopted into a home, either by a single woman or whatever. So there are some cases where that validation is not necessarily possible. That is not to say that there's no place for validation, but it was one area that I found very difficult to agree with the speaker, that without validation of a man, or without validation of a father, that a man is lost. I also happen to have been raised by my mom. I lost my dad at the age of 7. And, my mom raised 4 kids, and I think she did a damn good job doing that. And Victor mentioned, validation is a means of encouragement or reinforcing positive habits in people as you bring them up. But again, I also feel that if you need to be validated by a man, then it's probably because, there was some gap in being validated as a child, and people don't normally receive praise for good things they do, and they continue to seek for it outside. So if there is a pattern within a man of seeking validation and approval, then it's probably a result of that gap that have been created during childhood. Despite the fact that we were brought up by our mom, I don't think any of us suffered that issue of lack of validation by a man. So that is my own 2 pence on the matter.
Before you drop, yes, you lost your dad at age 7. Are you saying there were no other male figure around that could have done that for you that you probably didn't pay attention to?
When I think back, there were 1 or 2 people, but were they, you know, when you talk about people being around, you keep wondering how available or how constant are those people, you know, when you need them or when you need to reach out to them and that sort of thing. And I think we sort of got brought up in such a way that anything we needed or we required to validate, we actually went to our mom for. And I doubt that any of us, myself or my siblings, really missed that validation by a man or had to really go outside of maybe our immediate cousins and stuff like that for any kind of validation.
Okay. I will make my own comments after I may have heard all of you. Steve Daniels, you want to come in at this time? Bola Shobande, you're welcome back. We will brief you as to what has happened so far. Steve Daniels, yes, let's hear from you.
Yes, you see, when he talked about the validation of a father to his son, is one thing that I never had growing up. But again, I have sat down over time to say, how come other people got validation from their father, other boys? We didn't get it. But looking at the whole scenario as I grew up, I came to understand that, I've come to the understanding that because of the level of education of my dad and his exposure, so for him, those things does not count. But the validation, like Uncle Funshaw had said, my mom was always there. She was just always there. But my dad, yes, is there. But when it comes to things like that, he provides for the house. Yes, our food, our clothing, but you see this father-son relationship, we never had it. In fact, you don't try the man. If you try him, you regret. But again, I've come to understand that the environment in which he grew up, his level of education and exposure, the dominant religious practices, all these are what has culminated into forming him the way he was. I do joke with my siblings, particularly the guys, that if old man has not died, we will have sat him down one day and he will answer all our questions. But by and large, I got it from my mom, and another thing was that I also got it from the church. The church. I've always been a church boy. So no matter what, I always find somebody in church that will always tap my shoulder. You know, while Steve was teaching on Sunday, he said something. He said, when he was talking about the healing process, he said, God will take you to some situation where you'll find that there is a void in you. When I came to Lagos in 1999, I was having a discussion with my boss one day. My boss is presently 72 years old, so he's old enough to be my father. You know, the man had his arm wrapped around my shoulder. He left a lasting, that memory cannot, it will remain, I believe it will remain till I die. It's indestructible. So that one made me to understand that, okay, this thing that you didn't get from your dad and somebody is giving you now. So, but thank God, perhaps if my dad had been alive, he will have amended his ways because we will have spoken to him. But since he's no longer alive, God has, you see, God will always make a way. Whatever you lack, whatever does not play out for you the way it ought to, God will always put somebody somewhere that will always give you the necessary help at all the time. For me, I think my mom and the church did it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Excellent. I will defer my closing comments. Let me hear from Bola Shobande. Bola Shobande, this is what we discussed in your absence. Number one, the male that is unable to perform his conjugal responsibility may feel a sense of failure. The wife also feels a sense of abandonment. That's physically speaking. Now, if you look at that now psychologically, where a child is also not affirmed, validated by his father, the way Jesus was done for by his own father, as recorded in Luke chapter 9, I believe, verse 35, there may also be a sense of failure on the part of the man and a sense of abandonment on the side of the wife. Question: is it real as a woman? And if it is real, what counsel do you have for men?
I think it's very real as a woman. And my counsel for men is be honest. Often when things like that happen, rather than a man accepting that there's a problem, we either need help, let's talk about it, they will, on the other side will push it and say, oh, it's because you did this or this didn't happen. Admit, let's talk about, bring it out in the open, let it be discussed, there's a problem. And I guess once a woman knows that there's a real problem, which it could be a health problem, it could be a psychological problem, it could be an emotional problem, she will be ready to go the whole haul with you. But keeping it and pushing the blame, I think that is often the source of crisis, because then you're shifting the blame to somebody else. And I think couples should be willing to discuss honestly. There should be no threat of, that's really not what's happening. Because when things like this happen and you do not have the full understanding of what is going on, a woman's mind begins to wander. You begin to think of all manner of things. What is going on? Does it want out of the marriage? Is it going out? But before it even comes up, as soon as it comes up, if you're able to discuss it, it looks like there's a problem, and I'm trying to get some help. She might even say to you, let's go together. So it makes it, they say a burden shared is a burden solved. So that's, for me, is my, that's what I think basically on that. Now, regarding validation, I think it is extremely important that children, I don't agree that it's only male children, but more importantly, male children desire to be validated by either their fathers or a male figure. And the validation is not monetary. It is more emotional. It is physical. It could just be a thumbs up, which is why they say, why do we go for Children's Sports Day? Why is it important for children to see their fathers at Sports Day? I will use a very simple example. When my children schooled in Kenya, I didn't miss any visiting there. I went to Kenya every 6 weeks. I went more than my husband for many reasons, more medical reasons. As soon as I walked, it was always a long journey. It was a 5-hour flight and then another 4-hour drive. As soon as I drove into the school, the first thing my daughter would ask is, where's my dad? And her whole face drop. It was more like, and it was so painful for me because I'm thinking, I've made a 9-hour drive. I've given my all. And the first thing you're asking is, where is daddy? Not for boys. Boys just want to hear it. They want you to, I see boys' faces drop when they don't hear what it is they need to hear from their fathers. They want them to say to them, you're doing good. And I think fathers, as a matter of fact, I think they should share experiences, real life experiences with children, so they can learn from it. Let them know about Christ. Let them see the Christ in you. Let them understand what it is, what your hope is on. That is validation for a boy. It's not about saying, no, I'm reading my Bible. Let them see you walking the talk. I think for me, that validation is a must for boys. And if they don't find it from you, they will find it from somebody else. God help us if they find it in the wrong place. That's where the problem starts. So that's my point on, that's my view on both.
Thank you so much. I'm coming around now to take a final thought from everybody as we close this Bible Alive session. But these are my own concluding thoughts. God the Father openly validated Jesus Christ. Matthew recorded it. Luke recorded it. Let all men hear it. Let us validate all our children. A good practice will be to do it on the eve of a birthday, so they grow up becoming aware of it. Part of that validation is to talk and share about life. At every age, sex education appropriate for that age and information relevant to the happenings and the ongoings of the next year should be brought to their fore. They should hear their father say it. They should hear their mother say it. What they will pick from their father will be different from what they will pick from their mother. And I quite agree that there is a voice activation that needs to happen, that it is ideal that the father does. Whether we do it consciously or unconsciously, whether we are conscious about it or not, the mother will do our own part unconsciously. But the father will need to be deliberate about doing it. According to his own statistics, out of every gathering of 200 to 500 men, he has never found more than 2 that boasts of the fact that my father hugged me. My father sat me down and said, this is how to treat a woman. My father sat me down and taught me this is how to manage money. We never did. If anybody ever mentioned anything to me about sexual intimacy or sexual intercourse, it was my mom. And all she said to me is that you have, at the age where you can impregnate a woman, be careful what you do and don't go there, just read together. That's all I ever had. Every other thing I knew, I learned on my own or I learned from friends. And that is not good enough. As responsible fathers, we need to sit our children down, male and female, and pass it on to them. But because our emphasis this month is on authentic manhood, that's why we are singling out and focusing on the male child. If there's anybody listening to us today and you have a male child, it is not too late to sit them down. Don't be ashamed. The same way men find it difficult to talk to their wives about their sexual inability, and even sex is a challenge in couples, it could also be a challenge in family life to raise certain things. But that's why we are discussing it. It has to be done, let it be done. Jesus was validated openly in public, to the point where at the grave of Lazarus, Jesus was able to tell the Father, I know you hear me always. In other words, I know you have my back. Our sons must be able to say, I know Daddy has my back. We need to be deliberate about it. We need to be intentional about it. Sit them down, how to deal with life, how to deal with the lows of life, how to deal with the highs of life, how to deal with the opposite sex, and how to deal with the one woman that you eventually choose to marry. That's father to children. There was also something very profound that he said. He said, a man's voice could either be a voice of violence or a voice of silence. He says both are destructive to the psyche of his wife. The same way a man that is not able to satisfy his wife conjugally, a man that is not able to satisfy his wife conjugally A man that is also not able to nurture, affirm, give attention, and give affection, and activate her with the words of his mouth is also either physically violating her, abusing her, or doing same with silence. So you say, oh, I'm not talking, I'm just keeping quiet. That's also not good enough. The woman in the house, the wife you have chosen, needs to be voice activated. To be able to do this as a man, you also need to be healed. And what we have learned so far is that there are many processes that can bring us to the point of healing. God reveals to redeem. It might reveal to you in your Bible study. It might reveal to you in a preaching. It might reveal to you through an experience. It might reveal to you through an adventure, or one way or the other in the place of prayers. When God begins to reveal your inadequacies, it's a process. It may take forever for it to happen. That have commenced on that journey, we are able to heal our world with the same healing that we have received. Closing comments, Steve Daniels, you have 30 seconds. The mic.
Okay. Okay. In closing, I would strongly advise us men to take all these things that we are teaching, that we are learning, and put it to practice. With that, we will turn out to be who God wants us to be. Thank you, sir.
Elder Bola Shobande, your mic.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, thank you. What I would just like to say that I think it's extremely important that when men deal with their children, they should do it in love, and they should let the children know that it is genuine. You can be hard. There's nothing, you must be hard with a male child, I believe, but let the male child know that behind the hardness, there's a lot of love. Don't let it come out as wickedness or lack of care. That's, for me, is what I want to mention in everything. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Elder Funsho Shobande. Your mic.
I think the most important takeaway for me is that, you know, in the whole course of bringing up the child, especially a male child, I think the whole idea is that male children can be very adventurous, and where the protocols are a bit lax, they might tend to stray. But I think the duty of everyone is to, when people fall or when they derail, I think the whole idea is how they can get restored to purpose. And I think that should be the takeaway from, you know, this Bible study, that there is a place for restoration unto purpose whenever one falls. They say a man only fails if he falls and fails to rise again. And all these teachings are provocative to rising again. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, Elder Funsho. Pastor Victor.
Thank you. I think my conclusion will just be that let us all follow the example of our Lord Jesus. He's physically demonstrated the perfection of everything that we're talking about in masculinity. It's demonstrated the balance between strength and love, or between the lion and the lamb, as was described last week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a wonderful time this last 1 hour on Berean Bible Alive, trying to drill down on what we have been taught as a church, as a community, and trying to see how much of it we have applied before now, how much of it we are trying to align with and take down, and how much of it we are able to apply going forward. And as everybody has said, we want to let you know it is possible to raise healthy children. It is possible to raise strong male children who will demonstrate that strength by the level of sacrifice they are able to make as a man, as their source of strength. First of all, to their spouse, to their children, to their community, and to their world. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Next week, Sunday, this coming Sunday, beg your pardon, is Father's Day celebration at Rehoboth Community. Rehoboth Community is a global community of Christians that believe in the transformation of nations, one person at a time, one community at a time, and one nation at a time. And it is powered by the Father's House, which is the parish of the Rehoboth International Christian Center that meets in Osapa, London, in the Lekki area of Lagos State of Nigeria. I serve as the lead pastor, and my name is Olumide Olugbenle. I'm ministering to us on the same theme, authentic manhood, is Professor Vincent Anibogu, a man who has been called of God at this time to these organizations on how they can attain their ultimate in God. And we are believing for a wild time again on Sunday. And we shall be back again. And I'm going to ask the same panel to be with us. Oh, okay. My mic was muted. I didn't know. I'm on live. Thank you so much. That's the end of the Berean Bible Alive. Thank you so much for joining us. Till we see you again next week, stay safe and stay saved. Minister Steve, thank you so much. Pastor Victor, thank you so much. Elder Bola Shubande, thank you so much for the time you have invested in this. God bless. Bye.